Hello everyone, and welcome to another royal reading here at MadWorldTarot. And today I have the new Paladini tarot on the tarot table. It's a very royal tarot for me when I'm doing these readings. It carries that royal family energy. And I'm looking at Harry's place in the royal family today. I'm looking first at the Sandringham agreement and this eternal complaint that we heard in the court case in the past few days about how Harry and Meghan were forced out of the royal family. We heard it over and over and over. And it's as if he's trying to reopen the Sandringham agreement and try and really undo it and remake it in a different way. And I'm curious about this. Basically, I'm curious about whether they were forced out, whether they were fired, or whether they just wanted to go and seek their fortune, basically as those grifters that they were accused of being by that guy from Spotify. And the New York Post has covered this, and many newspapers have, but they have the quote, Harry and Meghan felt forced to step back as senior royals as they considered they were not being protected by the institution. They do love that word, institution. It's a quite negative word and they always use it about the royal family. So it goes on to say the Sussexes wish to continue their duties in support of the late Queen as privately funded members of the royal family, that good old half in, half out gig that the late Queen nixed immediately. But I'm interested by this not being protected by the institution bit. And I want to know what that really refers to. Does it refer to not being protected from the press, perhaps because rumours were circulating about things that went bump in the night? That kind of thing. So that's where we're heading today in this reading. I'm going to ask how Harry really feels about the Sandringham agreement. Now, he's obviously very aggrieved. Does he want back in? We're going to have a little look at that in the next reading. Does he want back into the institution in some half-hearted, half in, half out kind of a way? I'm getting the good gigs next reading rather than the standing in the rain shaking hands kind of gigs. We're going to ask about that forced out thing and the protection aspect. I'm going to ask about whether they were fired. Lots of people speculate that the real story behind the Sandringham summit and the agreement was that Harry and Meghan performed so poorly in Australia and South Africa and possibly even Morocco that they were told no more working royals for you. And then I'm going to ask the fortune hunter angle. Is that their primary motive for exiting? And how did they feel when the Queen said, nah, can't have half in, half out. Sorry, can't monetize your status as royals. And then I'm going to ask finally, feelings at the time. We are going back in the past today. The Queen's feelings, the late Queen's feelings at the Sandringham summit. What did she want? What was she experiencing? And Prince William's. I think those were the two key people at that summit for me that were opposing, or not opposing Harry and Meghan, but trying to get him to see sense. Maybe is it possible to get Prince Harry to see sense? Someone needs to write a book about that. Okay, remember tarot. Fun and entertainment, all my opinion, speculation, just read energy. And of course, there is a disclaimer in the box below. And that's it. Quite a long reading, lots of questions to ask about this. It's a bit wonky, it seems to be. When is it ever not? And as I said, long reading after a long day. There we have it. And our underlying energy for this one. Oh, yeah. Someone wants to wriggle out of the trap he got himself into, the pickle he got himself into. Ace of Swords in reverse. That's our underlying energy. That is, let's try not to be quite so lopsided, make you all seasick. That is Prince Harry. He got himself into a mess. He dug a hole for himself with the whole mixed thing, and now he wants to be freed from it. He does want to have it basically made null and void so he can get a different life and different perks and things like that. Most certainly I say, that's our underlying reading, telling me that someone wants out of the hole that they dug and put themselves in. My opinion, of course. Situation we're reading on, heart of the matter. What's the big problem? Oh, so unhappy. 10 of Cups. Misses the royal family. Misses the good life. The security of it all. There they all were, the cousins, the aunts and uncles, and all of them. Vast extended family that we no longer see precisely because of the Parkles. So those happy days of seeing them all packed onto the balcony, no, can't have those, couldn't have those at the coronation even. We got a sad little skeletal royal family on the balcony after the coronation because of Harry and Meghan. And but he misses it. 10 of Cups in reverse. He wants that vast extended family. He wants the emotional security of it. He wants to feel part of that huge institution with all these people who are going to be on the balcony again at VE Day in May, and I'm going to be reading on that next. Has been trying to reel his way onto the balcony allegedly, but we'll stick with the theme now. How does he feel about the Sandringham agreement that was hatched? The Fool. He believes that he was unwise to agree to it. I'm sure that when he got on that plane to Canada and told the Megs what he had done, although she was probably listening in somehow secretly, my snark, that's just snark. She would never do a thing like that. I'm sure he was boxed around the ears and told what a fool he was by both Meghan and Doria. The Fool in reverse. Definitely regrets how rash he was, how reckless he was, how possibly unprepared he was for what he was met with at Sandringham by the courtiers, the men in grey suits and all the rest of them. It also tells me, the Fool, that he might realise that it's not going to be revisited, because the Fool doesn't get another chance when it's in reverse. That's done. You're done. You made a big mistake, and that's too bad. Deal with it. Quite stern energy in there, isn't there? I'm almost getting Prince Philip, who reportedly left, wouldn't be part of it. He stormed off, not stormed off, he stalked off, I think is a better word, and took himself away because he knew he would burst an artery if he had to deal with the has-been. So, imagine the shame of it if you're Harry and your grandfather has to walk away, who's given his life to the institution. Okay, calm down. And does Harry want back in to the 10 of Cups? Just generally, how does he feel about it? The Emperor in reverse. I think he realizes the door has slammed shut. The Emperor is the king, of course, and the king is in reverse. That means that the current king isn't going to let him back in, and the future king, which is also Emperor in reverse, because reverse means delayed, waiting to activate. A king in waiting isn't going to let him back either. He knows that. For all the desire to escape from this reckless agreement that he made. Okay, let us look at the forced out narrative that was so obvious in this court case in the past few days, the security appeal hearing. We were forced out. They weren't protecting us. We didn't leave because we wanted to leave. We were willing to serve the royal family, but they made us go. Such bullies. It's not said, but it's implied. So let's see this forced out thing. What weren't they being protected from that made them think they had to flee to Canada and then California? And the Magician in reverse. Spin. Their little bag of tricks was being exposed. Magician upright, you don't see the tricks. In reverse, you do see the tricks, or the tricks are so dirty that they're really unfair. I'm tending to think that their tricks, in my opinion, they were full of tricks. Their tricks were being exposed, or likely to be exposed, or at the brink of being exposed, or at great risk of being exposed. Magicians can be press kind of people, very much so, because they spin things. They tell you things and you've got to believe their narrative. And I think there's some quite senior press figures in that card. That's my assessment of the energy, just saying. So I feel that they were bothered by all the negative reporting, what they perceived as negative reporting, but possibly was reporting that was uncovering things that they were trying to conceal, and who conceals better than a magician? So I think that answers that one. Were they particularly not being protected from what I believe were surrogacy stories that were swirling around all over the place? Was that really at the root of it? Just asking hypothetically to see. We've got the Hermit in reverse. That's Harry's energy. That's Harry who's in reverse. Harry and disgrace. I don't think it would have reflected so badly on herself. She might have come up with a good story of why she had to fake this, and I couldn't have children, but I wanted to feel the experience of being pregnant while a surrogate was carrying my child, and it's plausible. You could get away with it. And of course, I'm sure she'd thought it through. But Harry was the one who was on the hook for this. He was the one who would be in trouble, not her. He's the prince. He's the one who's covered up, possibly, and lied to the rest of his family. I'm just interpreting cards here. I'm reading energy, and I am expressing my personal opinion. But it does seem rather interesting. We have 2 major arcana. In fact, we've got 4 major arcana on this table. This was a big deal. This was a pivotal moment, very obviously, in the Sussexes' lives. And this looks like quite a driving force going on there. I don't think they were forced out. I think they realized that they needed to go about things in their own way when it came to silencing critics and people who might be digging around, and they sure did shut down some people who were digging around and very critical in some quite brutal ways. Ashley springs to mind, Danger Zone, in my opinion. Anyway, that was a long time ago, but not forgotten. Let's move on to the fired aspect of things, that a lot of people speculate that they were so useless at being working royals, so embarrassing, disgraceful, that people had to go after them and apologize to the host countries and try and smooth things over. Even Prince Andrew had to do that, allegedly, in Australia. Were they fired by the late Queen? Did she tell them, you're done, you're finished? Oh yes. Oh yes. That is her card, Queen of Swords. Always for me. I always have her in my mind when I hold this card in my hand. Queen of Swords in her queen role, not her grandmother role. Queen role, and it's in reverse. You are out. Cut, cut, cut. Very harsh, ruthless, cruel, doing something to save the institution. If you're going to save the institution, then you've got to cut out the rotten bits. Cauterize them. We're going to get to her actual emotions and feelings later in this reading. But that's, it's cold. I got to tell you, it's cold. Why? If she fired them, why? 8 of Pentacles. They weren't working. They weren't working hard enough. They weren't showing up. Maybe they weren't showing up in the kind of state you would expect royals to show up at events. I'm thinking of that Stephen Lawrence? Was it a memorial or something? Where they showed up. They weren't even married. I think they were engaged. And they showed up very, very late. The service was about to start. She came in a sleeveless dress. And they looked like they'd had a wild night out or in. And Theresa May, they were standing next to Theresa May, and she gave Meghan such a look of contempt. You can imagine the smell of alcohol and cigarettes and weed and whatever else billowing from them. That's my opinion. It's about the laziness, it's about the grifting, possibly even about the notion, the knowledge that possibly the Queen was privy to, that they were setting up all these deals on the sidelines. They were trying to monetize Sussex Royal, possibly the Oprah thing, possibly the Netflix thing. The Queen knew that these deals were being made behind the scenes to monetize themselves, and she was having none of it. Let's move on to the grifting card. Were they off just to seek their fortune? Was it all about the money that they flounced off? We want to be rich. We can't get rich in the royal family. We don't have the opportunities. And so that's what it's all about. Let's look at that. Three of Cups. Not so much grifting. What I get from that energy is our friends are also rich and successful and want to be like our friends. And maybe also just a bit of a feeling. Do you know who's coming through in that card is Fergie. Fergie, and there's sort of an older woman and then two younger women. That's, for me, is Fergie and her two daughters, the Yorkies. I'm getting, well, the Yorkies could do it, so why can't we? Sarah Ferguson trades on her Duchess of York title all the time. She's always making deals. She's always in and out of financial trouble. No shame there with Fergie monetizing herself. But of course, she was divorced with very little money, and still not a good look, really. But she wasn't a working royal, was she? She was just off on her own, making use of her title as best she could. I'm getting that energy. How did they feel when the Queen said, no, you can't be half in, half out. You can't monetize your titles. You can't do any of that stuff. How did they feel then? Ooh, the Hanged Man. It's in reverse. And I get the feeling, because the Hanged Man is limbo when it's upright and being powerless and waiting, hanging around, literally. I get the feeling, because the card is in reverse, it was like, okay, we're out of here. If you're going to make us play by these rules that we don't agree to and basically reduce us to nothing, where we're just dangling there, at least we can go off and do something and go our own way and try our own luck, make our own fortunes. I get that very much. So let's move on, just out of curiosity, what universe is going to tell us. How did the Queen feel in this moment? What was really going through her mind? Oh God, the Tower. Absolute calamity. A calamity on so many levels for her personally. Heartbroken in that card. For the royal family, a disaster. She knew, looking down into the future, she saw the disaster that would unfold with Harry and Meghan. And for Harry, disaster. Disaster, disaster upon disaster. It couldn't be worse for her that day. Took a toll. Shock in that card. Shock, absolute shock. For Prince William, a Hierophant in reverse. He knew it, because the Hierophant was the late Queen, Taurus card, Major Arcana, her as Queen. The disrespect to the Queen, he felt it in every fibre of his being. The disrespect to her and her status and what she stood for and what she'd achieved in her life and what she'd sacrificed in her life. He saw it. And also more generally the monarchy, how the monarchy was being disrespected and endangered, and what a rat Harry was being, and a traitor. That is my opinion. Those are my words, and this is all just my speculation. Quite actually for me energetically an upsetting reading to do, just by the way. But that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.